in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellows scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light. Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 653.
Yep, what's on the rocket docket?
The rise and mostly fall of Supergirl. Not much of a rise, to be honest.
You know, I think we should just get into it, because normally, like, especially with the movie stuff, I just toss it to you because I don't really have any idea where it's most interesting to start. Just because you're obviously more into like the entire scope of film, not just the end product. So for me, though, on this movie, I've been thinking about it today, and I think there are two very important questions when it comes to dissecting our thoughts on this film. And I just want to start with this because I wouldn't be surprised if this conversation takes up the lion's share of our feelings about the film. And I think those two questions are, was Supergirl a good movie? And the second question is, was Supergirl a good second theatrical outing for this new universe? Because to me, I think those two questions personally have very different answers. I don't know how you feel about that.
That's interesting by itself. Well, I suppose the one we probably agree on is that I'm going to guess that it shouldn't have been the second movie on the theatrical slate.
Right. I didn't want to start with that, though, because I think like the movie, like, and this is not just me being a staunch diehard defender of DC or whatever. This is honestly, I would compare how I feel about this movie to like Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle wasn't a bad movie. I didn't hate Blue Beetle. I haven't gone back to rewatch Blue Beetle. There were lots of things that I really liked about that film. I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting in this in this day and age, so to speak, that I don't remember the last superhero film people can call just good, and it's either great or it's awful, which I don't like. If films like Blue Beetle and Supergirl came out 10, 15 years ago, they would have been called great. But I don't know, for some reason, comic book films just need to be the second coming of Christ in order to be considered like fantastic, films. There's no like middle ground anymore. And I think that's part of the reason I had to separate these into two different questions, is because, was Supergirl a good movie? I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great, but I think it was a middle ground good movie. But a good, decent movie also isn't a good second theatrical outing for this universe. Or for any universe. As the second movie in a cinematic universe, good is not good enough. But I think the film itself has merits. It's just not the right time for it in this slot, I guess. I don't know.
I know where you're going with it, and there's some truth in it. I think I mentioned it to you that I think it's serviceable, which is not a word that you like to use in the sense that it even though it's an accurate word, because it means that it's not great. It's not as bad as some people are making it out to be, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do any. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing memorable about it. So on that level, on that level, it's like the Marvels and Brave New World, with the exception of, I mean, it's still probably better than Brave New World. It should be better than those movies too, because unlike those other two movies I mentioned, this movie wasn't re-edited and shot and re-put back together in 55 times like the Marvels was, and so was Brave New World, trying to salvage something they already knew was horrible. And when we get to the box office about this, well, obviously DC already, I mean, Warner Brothers knew this movie was going to fail before it opened, because of their approach and what they were saying to publicly, pretty unprecedented in what they were talking about. But they knew this movie was not going to work financially. I don't think they knew it was going to work as little as it did, but they knew it was not going to be a hit. It's okay. I mean, no, it absolutely shouldn't have been the second movie out in the cinematic universe, because it's a B minus tier character at best, which we know they can work because we've seen them work. But that's again the wrong lesson to have, and a James Gunn of all people. It's the wrong lesson to have learned from Guardians, that you can throw anything against the wall and it's going to stick. And it's like, no, it means if you have the right moment with the right team and the right concept, you can throw something against the wall that normally one would think wouldn't stick, and it can. But it doesn't mean it's like gold, and it's like the Midas touch, and you can do it all the time with any low-hanging fruit property. It's also who this movie was for. I think that's a legitimate question, because it seemed like they were aiming this movie for a really, really narrow group of people. And that's because of the choice of going with the Tom King story. They went with a non-traditional view of Supergirl. And even though many will argue that they didn't do a particularly good job at really adapting that story to begin with in this movie, they got enough of the aspects of it that people probably didn't like, and they were marketing those elements heavily. That did not exactly inspire confidence in this movie. Millie Alcock was fine. Yeah, I knew, even leaving it, pushing her running her mouth stuff, which I don't think kissed this. I don't, and like we talked about, I think this movie's fate was sealed long before she shut off her mouth. I don't think it really impacted this box office, no matter what. I think it would have done pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it may have had a small impact. I mean, it certainly didn't help. So any negative to snowball rolling going downhill is not going to help. It was like when everybody was doing interviews. The cast was doing interviews for the Tranktastic Craptastic Four. It's like they kept every single interview those guys were doing, the cast, they just kept putting their foot in their mouth. It's like, oh my God. So it didn't help, but she still was the best thing about this movie. It was kind of slow. I mean, there were some few cool action pieces in the movie, but it was kind of slow at times. I don't know. I mean, I guess Jason Momoa as Lobo had to be okay or good, because he was tailor-made for that role, much more than he ever was for Aquaman. But they still didn't do much with him, and he was barely in the movie.
I honestly, like, look, I thought he looked great. I thought he acted the part. He's Lobo come to life. I cannot think of anybody better to play that role. I mean, he's literally built for that role. He is Lobo. But I don't know why Lobo was in this film. He's one of the highlights of the film. Narratively, I don't understand why he was there.
Yeah, and you can make a strong case if they had gone with the same ending related to one character, but had Lobo do it. You can make a case that would have been Lobo's role in the movie. Mm-hmm. But I think I agree. I think Lobo's role in the movie was, hey, we want to have Jason Momoa as Lobo in this movie, so next time he drops by, we don't have to introduce him anymore. I think that's kind of what it was. You would think they could have had a different character co-star with her in this movie, which probably, besides obviously these Superman cameos, multiple in the movie, that they could have done that. But then again, that's how they introduced the way they introduced the character at the end of Superman, which we'll talk about. That didn't leave them a whole lot of openings too I mean, you still could have given, I guess they really couldn't have given us another established character at this point, because she didn't really know anybody who hasn't already been on Earth. I guess they could have done Guy if they had really wanted to, because I guess he could be in space. But I don't know. That's the problem with it. It's really hard to think about anything this movie does particularly well, other than, again, Millie Alcock I'm reluctant to say that she's likable, because the character's not written to be likable for a large part of the movie, which is a huge problem. and we'll talk about it relates to the marketing of this movie too. I mean, I'll just cut to the chase right now. I think the biggest mistake they made when it comes to this movie, because I think this movie, and I'll talk about this more when we get to the box office stuff. This movie is very much like Furiosa from the perspective that it was very unlikely in this case that the movie would succeed as opposed to Furiosa, which I have no idea why they greenlit that movie because I don't know why anybody thought that movie was ever going to possibly work when there were so many things working against it. This movie could have, under the right circumstance, been fine. I think introducing her the way they did at the end of Superman is this drunk party girl, rude, crude, unappreciative, all this stuff. That's not what they should have done. Even if you knew you were doing this story, we should have been introduced to the character that had moved beyond that. And then you chronicle how she got to that point in her own movie. I think giving us that, that you can never get a second chance to make a first impression. Giving us that taste of Kara and then marketing so much of that same unlikable aspect of, or unlikable part of her. I think that turned a lot of people off. And I think that was the absolute wrong way to go with this. And so there are times when she's likable in this movie, when she starts coming to grips with her journey and essentially having to put the bottle down to save her dog. And it was kind of interesting. Krypto was so little in this movie, which will make some people happy, I suppose. But
yeah. I can agree with you that her attitude and everything, especially in all the marketing, probably turned off a lot of people. I have come to like angry Kara Zor-El more in recent years, just because of the complexity of having to write a character as good as Superman all the time. To just throw in his cousin, who is also just like him. She's cheery and positive and bubbly and all that stuff. I especially given her history, I mean, it makes sense. Kal-El doesn't remember Krypton. He has no memories of what he lost. Kara does. So it just makes more sense. I know a lot of people don't like the angry Kara, and to some extent, depending on who writes it and how they write it, I don't either. It's got to be done a certain way. Did they do it that certain way in this film? I think they got close enough for my liking. I saw some of that in her. She was a bit insufferable here and there, especially towards the beginning, and it definitely pulled me out of it a bit. But I could see at least where they were trying to go with it. They were trying to put the stamp on she's different than her cousin. They were trying hard to drive that home, perhaps too hard. And just pivoting just real quick because it keeps flashing into my mind and I might as well mention it before I lose the thought. One thing I didn't like about the film was some of the visuals, and by that I mean these weird junk third world planets we found ourselves on, where we were kind of stuck in this almost sepia tone universe the entire time. It bugs me a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know what I was expecting to see. I can't tell you what it should have been, but it just felt like we kept jumping to these weird, trashy places. And part of what bothered me too, and speaking of the complexity of writing a character like Superman, this is why they had to invent so many damn types of kryptonite back in the day when they introduced Superman, and his weakness for magic and all that is because he can't be too perfect or else he can just overcome everything and it's hard to write him. I didn't like how long it took for us to get a full-on all-out fight of her showing off her powers. Because she was either under a red sun, or she was poisoned, or she was, experiencing the effects of a green sun, intent with the binary star, and she got hit with those darts. So even when she was finally wearing the damn suit and going all out against Krem and them in that scene, and but she still, I don't know why we just took so long to get. That's the one main criticism I would lob at this movie. as far as what I felt in the theater, sitting in the seat, the thought went through my mind, when is she going to let loose? When are we going to see her go all out? It is taking way too long to get to that point. I remember thinking that in the theater. But I don't know. I just think between trying to overly drive home the point that she's different than Kal-El, I think they just pivoted too hard into it, or maybe Millie leaned too hard into it in her role, but it doesn't matter. She was cast by the casting directors and all that stuff, so she gave them what they wanted out of this film. So I can't I don't in that regard I don't know if I can put her portrayal of Kara on her solely if that's what they decided they wanted for this film.
And this is where potentially, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, from a merit perspective, this is where potentially watching other superheroes, female superheroes and their performances, well, maybe you would have picked up on some things that you shouldn't have, what worked and what didn't work. And now, if they instructed her not to, that's something else. And the director certainly could have given her, this is what we would like to see from you here, or versus. But the point is, it wouldn't have hurt to have, again, going in completely in the dark. And this is where, well, maybe you would have been able to learn from someone else's mistakes right off the bat. I think I agree with you that, and that's why I said it kind of, what goes along with him was boring, because yeah, some of that is all these backwater planets. It's just a dismal, dank universe. A train of thought. I'm trying to come back to it. That the villains were lame, which is a very, very common problem. When you even think it wouldn't, and that's another issue that you can make a case that this could have been better right off the bat if there was a better villain. If they had just gone with a higher caliber, a villain people would actually know. If they had just done that and put that in the story, that might have upped the ante. I mean, you could have had it could have been more of a natural segue into what we're going to get with Brainiac. They could have done something, as opposed to having like no post-credit scene, nothing at all, nothing that ties that world builds into anything other than her showing up at the end, her being more amenable to working with Superman at the end, and it's like, yeah, I think I'll stay, and blah 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 blah. But the villains were bad. I mean, that's where you have to wonder about the direction. You'd think you would have given that you would have given Krems at least something more to do, except kind of like tilt his head and do some He was really, really unlikable, and really, but yet at the same time, he was a threat, but he didn't seem to Kara by himself, or even with his brigands, he didn't seem all that much of a threat where you knew she was seriously not going to be able to take these guys out, which of course kind of gets into the ending about whether you think what she did was justified or not. Which of course also comes back to, I guess, people's understanding and their just general knowledge of how the story ended, versus someone like me just watching the movie play out and saying, well, what are they going to do with this? Because they're making it clear in the movie that Krem is going to be like what, Romat Rue, that he's just going to come back. That if you don't take that, locking this guy up isn't going to really accomplish much if you can do it, because he's going to be coming back and he's going to be looking for revenge. So his demise was realistically necessary, and you knew you didn't. And Ruthie doing it would have been a big problem, especially since she literally spent half the movie telling Ruthie that revenge is not going to accomplish anything, which is the reason why some people have an issue with what Supergirl did, except Supergirl wouldn't be doing it. She didn't do it really out of revenge. You can make a case she did because of the dog, but I didn't take it that way. I think she did what she did because that was more justice. That was serving justice for everybody that they killed and everybody he killed. That was the justice that he deserved, along with the pep talk by her mom about always be good. You don't have to be perfect, but be good. And in that instance, that was the right thing to do, because if you didn't, it was going to create bigger problems. Like the issue we've talked about with Batman, the issue we certainly have talked about during Venditti's Dark Star run about the lethal force aspect, that it's not black and white as much as some people try to make it out to be, who are on their soapbox. It's not. Are you really morally superior if you're going to let somebody live who you know is going to do, who you either absolutely know or history tells you they're going to get out, do more, hurt more people, ruin more lives, and you can stop it, but you pat yourself on the back either because you think you're better than them or because you don't have the cajones to pull the trigger and do what needs to be done.
That's the same argument I mean, how many different times has that argument been interpreted in Batman comics? Batman not killing Joker.
Yeah, and at least like in Batman Begins, they gave you they gave you the easy out, the fact that it's like, I'm not gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Those are two entirely different things. You deliberately causing somebody's death or taking their life with your own hands is different than, well, I could step in and intervene, but I'm not going to. Now, you can make a case it's a ridiculously morally gray line, but the point still is that whole concept is really morally gray. It's not, it may make you sleep better at night, but it's also because maybe potentially you're just deluding yourself. So I had no problem with her killing him, Kara, and I think she did it also to protect Ruthie because it was going to be clear he was going to be coming after her again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the only way his story could have ended for anybody to have a chance to be safe is that he was going to have to go. So.
And he's not a villain we would want to see back anyway.
Oh, please, we didn't want to see him the first time. But the point, but you're right. But I know, but in a real world, that this is the kind of thing. It's like this is something you have to nip in the bud because it's just, and that's where that's where Lobo could have been a more valuable component. We know Lobo is essentially morally corrupt, so you can't expect Lobo to do something just for the hell of it, just because it's the right thing to do. Though you could have at least hinted at something in him where he kind of had some grudging respect for. Well, he did have a little bit of respect for Ruthie, so you can make a case of that he could have just done it just as a gift to her, not because it was necessarily the right thing to do, just because it was like, he's a piece of garbage and I'm here, and it's like I don't really care. So.
Yeah, I think the lessons Kara learned from her mother and from her father, which, by the way, I loved all the scenes on Krypton or Argo. And I think they leave the door because I think in most continuities, both Argo and Kandor exist, but eventually I think in some continuities or stories, Brainiac finds Argo and then just takes the people and puts them in his bottle city of Kandor. So I think there's the possibility that Argo just replaces Kandor in this universe's narrative, like Brainiac stumbles across them and takes them as his bottled city, since Krypton is now gone, or Brainiac got to Krypton before it destroyed and grabbed Kandor off the other side of the planet or something. I don't know. But I think they leave the door open a little bit to the possibility that, the way we know the story can continue as comic book fans could continue in this universe. Especially the idea of Brainiac always wanting to be the sole source of knowledge and everything. So he would want to preserve all of that information, and preserving means fixing all of the people in Argo who are sick. So her father could still be out there. So there's lots of stuff that can be done with that. I just mentioned it because again, horrible with actors' names. The guy who played her father, I forget his name. He played Charlie on Numbers, so I really should know him. But I thought he did great for the little bit we saw him. Lots of emotion. You really bought that this was the way his voice broke and stuff when he was talking about what Kara means and to him and his wife and all this. And I don't know if we even should touch on the whole fact of Zor-El and his wife, disagreeing with Jor-El and Lara on why they sent Kal-El to the planet. It seemed like they didn't share the same idea.
Well, the only thing that's interesting about that is the fact that it seemed, there's still, we talked about this when we did this Superman episode. There's still an out if the recording could 100% be real. There's still an out potentially if they wanted one because of the fact that at the end of the day, not that they necessarily changed their view about the Earth or anything, but Lara and Jor-El could have changed their mind about that. It's unfair to put this burden on their kid. That he's going to be going there to live. That he shouldn't feel pressured. Like he basically the whole weight of his entire people is on him to do this, or else he's going to let us down somehow. That we should let him use his own judgment. That we should let him. He will. We have to have faith that he will make the right decision, whatever that is. And then they tried to fix the recording as best they could right before the ship launched, and that was the best that they could do when the file was corrupted, and it got corrupted instead of completely erased, and that's why the rest of the footage was still there. But it seems like include this in this movie was doubling down on the idea, which to be fair, James Gunn had said that that recording was 100% correct and true, and there's nothing about it that, it's not really open to interpretation. So at least we know for a fact, if there was any doubt that, because some people still, because some people are stubborn as hell, despite when the friggin' director and writer comes out and tells you this is what it is. And it's like, well, I don't think so. It's like, he's effing telling you what it is. It doesn't matter what you think. He's telling you what it is. If you want to try to explain it away somehow from a story plot-wise and make it work, okay. But don't say that, well, it doesn't really, I can't accept that. It's like, he's telling you this. Until something else comes along, you might disagree, but you have to accept it. That this just doubles down on the idea that, yeah, the James Gunn really, for whatever reason, I think it's questionable at best, to change Lara and Jor-El to from being benevolent to malevolent, and not be the parents of him we've always seen in every other interpretation. So it's doubling down on that because because it's pretty clear around the dinner table. Everybody knew what Lara and Jor-El wanted for Superman, for Kal-El. Or at least we know that that's what Jor-El wanted, and maybe Lara went along with it grudgingly. But we know that definitely was Jor-El's vision and why in particular he was sending his son to Earth. So that just reinforces the fact that I guess we have to accept that, because it was a cute little tie-in, but it was clearly being done to reiterate that, yeah, that little plot point is there.
Yeah. No, I agree. How did you feel? Because you didn't talk about it at all. How did you feel about how long it took for us to even get a full powered Kara fight, and the fact that we kind of didn't even get it?
You're talking at the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, even at the end, she got hit with the darts and all of that, and
when she puts the suit on and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously got a little bit of it when they were in the space taxi or the space bus when she got hit with the yellow light to go to deal with these. Talk about more throwaway characters, those robbers or whatever she was dealing with. It's almost like they had to build up to that. I mean, we obviously saw her with powers when they were fighting in the brigands, and when the bar owners set her up, and then when they got killed and their daughter got killed and all that stuff. The big Lobo action piece, really, until the very end. I still, even so, that still probably was the biggest Lobo action piece when they were fighting at night on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
I still like that better than the fact that they gave us this half-ass thing when she's trying to go back and get Ruthie's sword back when she's fighting this huge alien when she has no powers whatsoever. All 5 foot 200 pounds of her, and somehow she's able to beat that guy or be able to make him beat himself when there's really no reason to think that she has the skills to do that.
I like her fighting style. It just visually seemed different than Clark's. I can't point to why. Because like you could make the case that she was more focused on fighting, but there were so many moments where she would see someone in trouble and dart away to get them out of the line of fire or whatever. So it's not that. She's definitely protecting people the way Clark does, but I don't know, it just seemed more frantic, more energetic. Like she's still very powerful and confident in at least her ability to handle herself, but it just seemed more violent. I don't know.
Well, I would say probably just more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And that would make sense based on her personality type. And again, you could say that is a better use, a practical use of the difference between the two characters and their origins, and is the fact that, yeah, she's got more anger to deal with, and she's less likely, because she doesn't naturally see the good in everybody and want to protect everybody, not just. I mean, she's willing to protect some people, but even then, it's kind of in the beginning of the movie, it's really grudgingly. I kind of been forced into this, and I guess I'll do it but I really don't want to. But either way, she's more aggressive. She's more aggressive in her style, and that makes it appropriate, I think, based on her background, and that's a good way to distinguish between her and Clark. It is, I think, it's also somewhat odd for someone who, in as we meet her, that she really, on the surface, has doesn't consider Earth her home, and she, at least in the beginning, has no desire for Earth to be her home, but she certainly embraces Earth culture awfully quick and pop culture awfully fast. That seems a little somewhat suspect too, I think.
I think it was just the music because they make the point of like she gets her powers and we see a couple of scenes go by and then we get another flashback where she's standing in I guess what Clark's apartment or something or an apartment he rented for her looking out the window. Her super hearing is kicked in and she's hearing everything that's going on and she can't handle it, like not necessarily that she can't get a grip on the power itself, but she doesn't want to hear that. So she instead of like focusing herself and her power, she intentionally just says, I can't handle this and blocks it out with music. And the music is what pulls her in. So I think maybe music is as much of a coping mechanism to her as maybe the alcohol ends up being.
No, I can buy that. It just seems like if she's so against the idea of being here, or if she resents being here, it's just, I guess it's a life, it's just a one life preserver she'll grab, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess we could accept that. It just seems she's a little too colloquial. She's a little too cliche-y, if you will, for someone who doesn't seem to really want to give a shit. But to me, that just seems like it could very well just be a matter of convenience from a plot perspective too.
Yeah. Specific to her killing Krem, I was fine with it as you were. I think it makes sense with what her mother told her. I think it makes sense with how close she got with Ruthie. I think it makes sense with I think it makes sense with how she feels about crypto. Um, Although I don't think she killed him because of crypto. I think she meant what she said when she said this is for crypto and that's for what you did to that little girl. Like the stab was okay, you messed with my dog, but you know I think that was truthful. I think it's okay too because this is obviously something complex, and if we see her again, which I believe we probably will, we should. Um, is she confirmed for Man of Tomorrow? I think she
Yes.
is, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this is, what's Kal-El's reaction going to be when he finds out about this? Is he going to chide her? Is he going to understand? Like, there's a reason that some of the stories of Kara coming to Earth and her training and stuff includes going to Themyscira to be trained by Wonder Woman and the Amazons, because her outlook and her sense of justice and obviously of course her power level is such that Clark's not going to be the one that's ideal to train her. Somebody else is. So not that I think that we're going to see that particular storyline. Kara goes to Themyscira to be trained by Wonder Woman and crew, but like you could see that happening with this version of Kara, given what we see from her. Like going out on patrol with Superman, and just standing by him and taking lessons on how to handle this or that and the other, the same way like Miles does with Peter in the Marvel universe and certain universes, is not going to fly the same way. So I think I it didn't bother me that she killed him. It'll be interesting to see if it has any effects on her, because we obviously have no idea how long she spent with Kal-El before she left Earth to go on her little party cruise. We would assume it's been a little while, but did she actually like wear the suit he gave her and go out on patrol or help him with any fights? Did the world get to see Supergirl? Did she get to experience who Superman is and what he means to that world? Or did she just avoid it all the time and never go out and, help him with some big problem or whatever, and the world got to see her as that? Because it really didn't seem like, especially even with that talk between the two of them at the end, like I didn't get the feeling that I was expecting that I might get, like, of her, like, looking him in the eye and being, you get that feeling like, I hope he doesn't find out. I don't think she cares.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be pushing her. So I don't. If there's going to be ramifications from that, I don't think it's going to be. Who knows? This is something that could come out in Man of Tomorrow, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Because obviously other places in the universe are going to know about it. So maybe Brainiac could know about it, and he could throw that in there. He could throw that out onto the table to build some tension
Hmm.
between the two of them. Again, obviously we know he's not going to be happy if he finds that out, but again, that's I don't know. It's a fine line. That's why it's kind of problematic, arguably, in the DC having both Batman and Superman having similar codes as far as, well, we don't want to kill. You can understand it more with Superman because it'd be so easy for Superman to kill. So you can actually, it makes a little more sense why because he has to he has to pull his punches like time 1,000 compared to what Peter Parker has to do.
Hmm.
But they have to do it. Batman, you may have to pull your punches to a certain extent, but Batman is not superhuman.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Related to the actual on the screen, I'm just trying to think. I don't want to overlook something, but I guess that's part of the problem too. There isn't a whole lot there. They certainly don't explain how she even got a ship, but I guess we're just supposed to look beyond all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if there's that much to talk. I guess that's maybe part of the inherent nature of this movie, good and bad, is that I don't know if there's, like we talked about, it's not particularly memorable. So there isn't that much to really zero back in on, I don't think.
Yeah. Like I said, I thought generally speaking, I had some fun watching it. Like I always, surprise, surprise, bias kicking in here. I'm always, down to be happy and excited when I sit down in a movie and it's a new entry into something DC related. I just get to see that world on the screen, and that's going to influence my opinion in some way, shape, or form. But I think I texted you. There were 10 people at my showing. There was a pretty empty theater, and then, speaking to Blue Beetle, I went around the same time. That theater was crowded, and it was a lot of Latino culture in there. But it was a big event for them, so I understand that. But at the same time, I think I saw Blue Beetle roughly around the same time that I saw Supergirl in terms of relation to it coming out in theaters versus seeing it in the theater itself. Saw those two pretty quickly, so I found it odd that it had such a small showing. But then again, I did see it in IMAX, so I didn't see it in like a regular theater. So maybe the not a lot of people were shelling out for the IMAX experience. That could have influenced it in some way, shape, or form. Will I get it on Blu-ray when it comes out? Duh, that's what I do. Will I watch it again? Probably. I think, especially in new cinematic universes, you're always proud to start a new marathon here and there. So I'll probably watch it again, and I would genuinely be interested to watch it again in the comfort of my home with no expectations or just basically a more casual watch. I'm not watching it with such a discerning eye. Is it a better movie when I know in advance what it is? Because that can happen. A movie that's just kind of meh was like, now that my expectations aren't through the roof, or I'm not dissecting it or whatever, I can actually just enjoy it a bit more just on a more casual watch. I'd be curious to see if this is a movie that happens with.
Well, there's also an element that you have nowhere else to go but up on this, to a certain extent too. That not because it's the worst comic book movie ever made, but just because, it's not the worst comic book movie, certainly by far. But the reality is that the Blue Beetle thing is not a bad analogy because it is kind of. I actually relatively like Blue Beetle too, but I've never watched it again. Doesn't mean I won't, but I've never have. So the odds are I would have to. It has to be a really perfect, the perfect storm to kind of hit. Speaking of, in a way, in a pseudo way, of Blue Beetle, that I guess one of the big winners of the Supergirl box office fiasco is Dwayne Johnson because Black Adam looks so much better now. Considering Black Adam literally made $30 million more on opening weekend than Supergirl did. And at least Black Adam made almost $400 million at the box office, while Supergirl is going to be seriously hard pressed to make $200 million. I probably would bet right now that it won't make $200 million worldwide the way this movie opened. So yeah, I guess we probably should talk about which is the biggest, the real story of Supergirl and its lasting legacy is going to be, my God, this movie did horribly. I mean, and DC knew it. I mean, you've never once ever heard a movie studio come out a couple of days before the movie even premiered to say, we really don't have to make as much as we normally would because we have all this money in partnership agreements. It's like, you never hear anybody talk about that. It's not like this is the first movie in the history to ever get partnership agreements. Now, supposedly the amount is higher than standard or what people have gotten before, but you don't talk about that. And besides, it's not like you just get a wad of cash put in your hands. I think it's essentially like, it's like marketing. It's like free marketing for them. Is that what it really is? It's like people pay to have licenses to do this and to do that, and you kind of get free publicity out of it. But still, it's like the mere fact, and even that was fuzzy math. Because they're not literally getting the money put in their hands, it would always be fuzzy math. But the budget on this movie is debated. It's either somewhere between 170 and 186. Now, of course, the studio wants you to think it's 170, which is why I certainly will believe it's more than 170, because history tells us this is the case. Because the lower your budget, the less you have to make to be profitable. So it makes sense that they would tell you it's 170, even if it's not. But even when they were telling you it was 170, even using their fuzzy math, it still would mean the movie would have had to make about $410 million at the box office using the 2.5 multiplier to break even. And even if you wanted to use their method of subtracting almost like $100 million off the top from that, which is bullshit, but if you want to do it, that meant the movie still really had to make $310 million. They said if it makes 300, we'll be happy. But of course, considering how it opened, maybe that was not as much of a spin job as, it was clearly spin, but maybe it wasn't as much spin as we first thought because they were literally like praying to the movie gods, please let us do 300, because this movie made a whopping $67 million, I believe, worldwide on its opening weekend. So it didn't just tank here; it tanked everywhere. There was like no interest to see it even overseas. I think right now the rough projections on this movie is that it's going to drop somewhere between 60 and 70% in weekend two, which means it ain't going to have legs. And that's about the only way it could probably have hit 200 million anyway. Because usually if you want to have a rough estimate to what you're going to do potentially it's not as set in stone as the budget multiplier to see if you're profitable or not, or have a chance to be in the black. That you look at what you did on opening weekend and you kind of times it by 3, and that gives you a rough estimate of what you should bare minimum do if your movie's successful during its entire box office run. So even that using the 67 million would put you very, 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 very barely over 200 anyway. And that's assuming it has to hold well enough to do that. I mean, case in point, Mandalorian and Grogu has only made about 2 times whatever it made on opening weekend worldwide. It only has made about twice that number. So that's why that movie's going to lose money too. Yeah, this was a complete utter debacle. And
yeah, I found Peter Safran's quote, by the way.
Go ahead, if you want to give it, go for it.
While Supergirl didn't meet our box office expectations, it's just one component of a broader long-term strategy at DC Studios that we remain confident in.
Which kind of goes back to our other question about whether this was the right movie to release second. You look at, honestly, you look at the projects that he has, as in James Gunn and Safran too, have kind of greenlit to begin this universe. First of all, you had Creature Commandos, which was ridiculously odd. Now, it worked. I enjoyed it. But it's obscure as hell. And then you had Superman, which was successful, but it wasn't super, no pun intended, successful. It was okay, box office-wise. When you look at the budget of the movie, it was okay. If it had a smaller budget, then I think I don't have it. I'm not looking at it. I'm looking at Supergirls at the moment, but obviously I can pull it up. Superman made over 600. So if the budget was significantly smaller, then it would be more impressive. But it was okay. Then they followed up with Peacemaker season 2, and let's move beyond the that's the next step in the DC and the DCU. Make sure you watch Peacemaker, an opening episode with the bisexual orgy in it. James Gunn's got a James Gunn, but most people didn't like season 2 of Peacemaker anywhere near the way that they liked the first. So that's kind of a negative. I mean, I thought it was okay. It's not as, I mean, up to that point, I was okay because I didn't hate anything that he did, or I wasn't greatly disappointed. So then you have this movie, which I was not looking forward to, and I think there were a lot of reasons why I thought this movie wasn't going to work. We talked about the cameo at the end that was bad. We talked about it's a controversial story. It's not a traditional take on the character. It's just, but this movie really, really, this is a huge disaster. I mean, this is worse than the Marvels. This is like Morbius territory. This is just bad. And now you're going to follow it up with Lanterns, which we hope is good for multiple reasons and personal reasons. But if Lanterns isn't a huge hit, let's say it's okay. Let's say it does okay. Whether we like it or not, let's say the general opinion is it's okay to good. Then you got Clayface, which is still going to be a ridiculously hard sell. Even if the movie's really good, it's going to be a really hard sell. But if we go with a scenario in which Lanterns does not really impress anybody, or maybe we think it's good, but the ratings aren't good, and then Clayface doesn't make any money either. Now you have arguably you kind of what Marvel had last year with their 3 theatrical releases, in which none of them really were successful. And then you have that rolling into Man of Tomorrow, which is the most important. I mean, this is almost like his last stand. If that movie doesn't do really, really well, I don't know. So on that level, it's a really odd choice to go with Supergirl second. It would have been much better off for them to do a more traditional character, I think, second. And again, they could have introduced said character in the Superman movie and spun them off. I don't know. I think I mentioned the Furiosa thing, which I always come back to with this. Fury, I mean, I have to say it, and I'll make it super quick. I mean, Furiosa was one of the most ridiculously insane greenlit projects of all time. Mad Max is barely a franchise to begin with. It's never made a lot of money. I think the only theatrically, financially viable entry was Thunderdome at the height of Mel Gibson's popularity. The franchise was tied to Mel Gibson, who, even if he wanted to come back, he's still being friggin' essentially blackballed for shit he did 30 years ago in a drunken traffic stop. So the studio probably wouldn't even let him star in a movie if you wanted to, and plus you'd probably wanted to go younger. So you had one entry, Fury Road, in like 30 years, which the critics drooled over that movie. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but it didn't make a lot of money. And even if you thought Furiosa was an interesting character to build on, then you recast the character and you don't bring Charlize Theron back, which was the draw to the character anyway, and you give it a ridiculously high budget. So as I said then, a couple of years ago, what could possibly go wrong? So Supergirl's not in that territory, but it's similar that there were danger signs here. And I think it all, like I mentioned, I think it all stems from that bad choice of the cameo at the end of what the cameo actually was at the end of Superman. I think they would have been better off portraying her in some way, shape, or form as a little bit more likable. Maybe just not make her friggin' drunk. Maybe just not make her drunk. She still could have been had an edge to her, but just not make her drunk. So yeah, this is a major, this is like a torpedo to the hull, but maybe it doesn't completely detonate. So the ship is not sinking, but it wasn't good. But it puts them in precarious situation, I think, and I don't know. So this is actually the first project we've gotten that James Gunn really hasn't really truly been involved in. Not not in the real creative sense in this universe.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So and of course, as we know, the screenwriter, she never had really, I think she'd only written maybe one thing before, but either way, she was relatively a novice. Funny asterisk for those who don't know, she actually was supposed to write the Sasha Calle Supergirl movie that never came to be because the universe flipped. Actually, which that was another thing, by the way, which I completely forgot about. I had the note, I didn't look at it. That's another reason why I think Supergirl was kind of destined potentially to have a problem, because we just saw Supergirl a couple of years ago, and even though she was by looks not a traditional Supergirl, people really liked Sasha Calle. They liked her and Michael Keaton. I still think that movie's fine. Actually, I like that movie a hell of a lot more than this movie. But The Flash, Sasha Calle, most people think she and Michael Keaton were the best parts of that movie. So you kind of had and she was an angry Supergirl to a certain extent, understandably so. Also, but she was still more likable than Kara was to a large extent in these movies or these appearances. I don't know, Chad.
Yeah, like I said, I think looking at the box office, domestic box office for this compared with, apparently it did worse than Morbius and worse than Marvels. I don't think the movie's worse than Morbius. I think Morbius is a worse movie than this was. Uh,
I haven't seen Morbius in forever. I think I would tend to agree with you, but it's pretty close. I do think it's pretty close. I mean, I think the Marvels was still probably better than this movie, which is kind of embarrassing considering that's a movie that, again, was a Frankenstein job cut up and put back together. But I do think it's better than Brave New World, which was cut up and put back together and still didn't work at all.
yeah, no, I gotcha. I think that's it. Probably we got for it. I don't have much else. It's just it would be interesting to see DC's reaction to this, or James Gunn and Peter Safran's reaction. What lessons they learn from this, if any, or if they share them with the greater public, and how they adjust approach moving forward. But I don't know. That we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at some point James Gunn's going to say something. I'm not sure if we're going to get a full clearing of the slate here of coming clean about what happened, or acknowledging, well, I mean, it would be refreshing to have somebody, to certainly just have someone not come out and go the all too common tropes. Oh, it's so hard to have a female-led action movie, female superheroes. There's so much natural pushback. Those us white males, we're just so misogynist. Now I don't think James Gunn's going to come out and do that too much of it. And I don't think they're going to do as much of it as they normally would with this movie. I've seen some people talk about this already, but it's going to be harder to do it because the critics really don't like this movie. If the critics like this movie and it tanked, then you would see a lot of that. Then there would be us. It would be our fault for not embracing this movie more and going to see it and having our sensibilities are just off and wrong. But because the critics don't like this movie either, I mean, it doesn't mean some won't do it because hypocrisy is everywhere. But we're not going to see as much of it when it comes to this movie because I think more people don't like it. At least have acknowledged, well, there's, even if you as an individual liked it, usually when it comes to something like this movie in particular, you can probably understand why some people didn't, why it wasn't their cup of tea. Yeah, we will see. We will see. I mean, Clayface is another non-James Gunn written, directed project. So we will see. Now, yes, some people have championed the fact it's got a much smaller budget, but still doesn't mean it's going to make money. It just means no matter what, you're going to lose less money. But we have to see. It's a non-traditional comic book movie. Yes, you might get the body horror fans to embrace it, but you might lose some of the traditional comic book fans along the way. So I don't know. What they really need is they need Lanterns to be a big hit.
Mm.
Lanterns can act as that deodorant that the MCU had gotten a lot of until last year. That no matter how bad some of their projects had been, something would come along that would actually work, and that would kind of like at least stop the bleeding. Marvel was real good at that for a while. You had the Marvels, and then you had nothing, I think, till Deadpool and Wolverine came out. And while it may not have given you any momentum, and you probably never thought it would, because like most of the successes the MCU's had in phases 4 through 6, they're all kind of like isolated. They're all their own worlds, their own stories that really have almost nothing to do with what's going on in the mainstream universe, and people just have an interest in for nostalgia and different reasons. But it did still work at stopping the bleeding, at least. So the lanterns would stop their bleeding, but we just
it comes out soon enough in relation to Supergirl that it might, it might, not allow Supergirl to settle too much in the minds of everybody.
And that's the other benefit. That's the one benefit, I think, of the fact that this movie is probably going to be here and gone real quick from the movie theaters, because of the fact that, and it almost has to be, because with Minions opening up this week, and then you're going to have, I think, the Evil Dead movies coming out. You got the Odyssey, whatever that will do. It's right around the corner, and obviously the specter of Spider-Man hovering over everything. That Supergirl is probably that's going to come and go so fast theatrically that it will be easier to turn the page because it's not like a death by a thousand cuts. This is, you just got, you took a spear right to the heart. So you are pretty much DOA, but you're right. It'll be easier to focus onto the next project, just like you didn't. Nobody had to wallow in the stench of the Eternals for like more than a month and a half, because then No Way Home came out.
You mentioned the misogynistic angle. I was scrolling through earlier and I saw this quote from the New York Times. Female-led superhero movies have been rejected almost uniformly over the past 5 years or so, perhaps reflecting a resurgent misogyny among the core fan base, which is largely male, unquote. Look, I don't doubt that there are some people out there who are misogynistic who were against this film for that very reason. But the fact that that would be in any way considered the reason it failed, no.
It's the New York Times. What do you expect? I know it's a good quote, but again, that's that side of the political aisle's view on it. Nothing can fucking fail because it wasn't good enough, or because they made mistakes. It always has to be the evil people on the other side that made it fail. Wakanda Forever worked from a box office perspective. It made a shit ton of money, and Shuri was the star of that movie. Captain Marvel, which most people don't think was a good movie, a really good movie, and yes, Captain Marvel came out at the right time because they could have released Man Thing, as we always jokingly say, because that was the last movie right before Infinity War, and that's still. Or actually, right before Endgame. That was the last movie before Endgame. You could have released Squirrel Girl, the movie, and that movie probably would have opened up to 150 because Marvel was so big at that time. But the point is, Wonder Woman, the first one, which was a good movie. The second one wasn't, but it also was a day-and-date release in the heart of COVID when the theaters were closed. A day-and-date in the sense that, yeah, some theaters had it, but it opened up almost nowhere, and it was just something on HBO Max. On Christmas Day, I think, if I remember correctly. So that's just such a lame straw man argument. I mean, it's like this movie didn't succeed because it wasn't done well. Black Widow made decent money, and Black Widow had been tracking to 150 million before COVID shut everything down, because people like the character. It has almost nothing to do with that. And again, if you're going to go down that road, then back to the Zegler, Barrera, Alcocks of the world, then shut the F up when you're marketing your movie and stop insulting your audience. That comes in handy too, because if you give people no incentive to go see your movie if you're showing a clear disdain for a large portion of the populace that would normally come support your project, and you're making it sound like, oh, we don't want your support, then yeah. So, but I'm glad you used that quote, because I knew it was out there, because I've seen it. I mean, I've seen other quotes, and because that's just how you have to react. I mean, if you're on that side, you have to. It's always got to be that. It can't be because you get. It's like, oh, the Acolyte failed because of misogyny and blah, blah. No, the Acolyte failed because it wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. That's why it failed. So it's just frustrating. But on the bright side, Spider-Man is tracking towards about $250 million as we speak.
Should be fun. I don't know if I'll see it opening weekend. I just don't really feel like dealing with the crowds on that level.
You better go see it, Bokeman.
I'll see it. I just don't know about opening weekend. Yeah, I might wait. I might, do a weekday or wait till the next weekend or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I have my tickets, but again, it all depends on whether Dan's going to be able to go or not. But I think I've made up my mind that even if he can't go, I'm either going to go by myself, or I'm going to try to go to an earlier showing, like an afternoon showing on that Thursday, and go by myself, because I do want to see it. I mean, if we can see it, if he's available on Friday and we can still get good seats, which is going to be tough at that point. That's the problem, because he probably won't know more than a week in advance that he won't be able to do the Thursday night show. Then maybe I'd wait, but I'd be interested in seeing it more than once anyway, I'm sure. So I probably would just go. But it's not surprising. That movie should not be surprising at all, no matter where it ends up. And obviously, it's still about close to a month. Actually, probably still is a month out, technically, since today's July 1st. That it's not. If this movie does over 250, it wouldn't be surprising, considering the last one did over 260. It speaks to the power that is Spider-Man, and how popular that character is, especially when this movie on the surface is nowhere near as nostalgia-driven or multiverse-driven as No Way Home was. And it also reinforces, like a fruitless exercise, because it could go off in 1,000 different directions, but it does still make you at least wonder. It's like, man, just as bad as things in the MCU currently are overall, just imagine how much worse they would be if they never made an agreement with Sony to have Spider-Man.
I saw a rumor that Sony's considering, or that they're considering selling it back to Disney, but there's so many different rumors.
That I will safely say that I don't think Disney has enough money to buy that off of Sony.
The number I saw floating around was $10 billion.
Yeah, so Sony has no reason to do it because it's a cash cow for them. I mean, all you have to do is make another movie every few years, no matter what. And it's not like they need Marvel to make it.
Well, yeah, but I think the argument is that they haven't been able to succeed at anything else besides Spidey.
Well,
all their attempts with Morbius and Kraven and even Venom to some extent just didn't do anything for them.
There's truth in that, but they also haven't taken the logical approach because they've been spinning these villains off into their own movies, which is a debatable concept anyway, and Spider-Man's never been in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I know we all know they've had this, I don't want to use the expression, but let's just say they've been very, very aroused about the idea of doing the Sinister Six for centuries. So that was the big setup at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 when you saw all the experiments and everything that they were working on that would have matched with all, I think the classic Sinister Six. But Spider-Man itself is popular. So first of all, there's no reason why they couldn't have Tom Holland still do Spider-Man movies just for them. There's also that they could recast again. They've done it three times. So I don't know. I don't. It's too much of a cash cow for them to sell it. I think they would be wise to just continue on with what they're doing, especially since right now, they're still getting some benefit. Obviously, they're going to get benefit from having the Hulk in this movie, and they're going to have some benefit if it is but the Punisher to a lesser extent. If it is Jean Grey's big moment in the sun, that's something too. But that's what But Sony's side of the deal, getting the big tie-in to the MCU, needless to say, hasn't been as important over the last 4 or 5 years because the MCU has gone into the toilet. It's more. I think it's more what Marvel has been getting from Spider-Man. But yeah, I don't think they're ever going to sell that. It would be very, very unlikely. And like you said, who knows if Disney even has the money to do it at this point.
Yeah. All right. We done?
I think so.
All right. If people want to reach out to us, what do they do?
The website, LanternCast.com. The email is LanternCast@gmail.com. If you like us, please like us. If you like us, you can follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, #GLCast to track us down. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a text or a voicemail, 708 Lantern, and let us know what you think.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.